We all know that Invincible Season 3 came to an iconic close with an iconic fight with an iconic Viltrumite. But that's not the only thing Invincible Season 3 decided to bless us with. Today we're going to be ranking all of the show versions of the alternate evil marks from other dimensions. We're going to be ranking them on a scale of S to F. I doubt F will get used, but you never know. I'm mainly going to be ranking them on appearance. Some of them I'll rank personality because, you know, some of them get a little bit more verbal screen time than others, but for the most part, it's just going to be appearance and the general vibe they give. And just to get this out of the way right at the start, remember that if I put something in the lower tiers, unless it's F tier, that doesn't mean I think it's bad, it just means I think other things are better. And of course, if you end up enjoying this video, then definitely hit the like and sub button. If this is the first Invincible video you're seeing of mine, then definitely be sure to go check out the videos I did covering each episode of Season 3. Alright, that's enough formalities. Let's get to this ranking. I actually had one of my viewers and good friends send me a list of all of the names of the alternate evil marks, so I wouldn't have to come up with my own names. And I have it right over here on my second monitor, so if any of these names are quote-unquote incorrect or just never have been heard or wrong, feel free to direct all hate and annoyance to my viewer, who I won't name. Starting off, we got Goggles, or Goggles Mark. This is the version of Mark that Rexplode, my beloved hero, took down with him in his final blaze of glory. This Mark is arrogant, overconfident, and his costume is a little bit silly. But he made the fatal mistake of underestimating Rexplode, so that's immediate minus points in intelligence. So I think this Mark is going to get a very comfortable, yeah, I think C tier feels right. Next up, we have Bulletproof Mark, a version of Mark sporting Bulletproof's costume. For reasons I shouldn't need to explain, this combo makes a lot of sense. A lot of yellow, but I kinda like it. So I think I'll be giving Bulletproof Mark a B tier with sort of low B tier as I put in other marks. Next up, we got Hood Mark, who has the single most outrageously silly costume of them all. And yes, it was an excuse just to use that clip again. Oh my god, play it 3 more times. We actually get to spend quite a decent amount of screen time with this version of Mark. He comes across as more of Ashley and douchebaggy, and he doesn't really seem all that strong in comparison to our Mark and Eve. But he did inspire me to make a very beautiful clip that I still laugh at when I watch, and it is rare that I laugh at my own work. But no, this costume is super goofy, and honestly, just for the sake of the memes and how memeable this guy kind of is, I'm gonna give him a low B tier, lower than Bulletproof Mark. Next up, we have Flaxan Mark, a version of Mark sporting some flaxen armor. I'm pretty sure this was the one that Cecil in the GDA killed when he raided the GDA. I'm pretty sure it was this one. The flaxen armor combined with the the black goggles with no hood. First of all, very cursed seeing the goggles without the hood. And second of all, the white armor and the black goggles combined with how his hair is styled, it kind of makes him look like a future cop from Men in Black or something. I actually quite like this one. A tier. And next up we have, and I'm gonna read exactly the name that my viewer friend sent me, Missing Mommy Mark, or Masked Mark. It's true. This Mark admitted that he missed his mother, and he wanted to find her in another dimension and bring her home, which I thought was quite heartwarming. He was also the one who talked the other versions of Mark into sort of betraying Angstrom. Well, maybe not for the same reasons, but he sort of was the one that sparked the idea, hey, let's not deal with this guy's crap anymore. As for the costume, it's not my favorite. I like the black, solely black and blue color scheme in general, but I don't know, this one just it's a bit odd, But at the same time, I feel sympathy for this version of Mark because, yeah, I know where he's coming from. And I imagine he finds it quite difficult to breathe sometimes when flying at supersonic speeds, so at the very least, I have sympathy for this version of Mark. So on the personality and sympathy side, I really like this one. On the general costume design though, it's not exactly my favorite. I'm gonna give this one a C tier, but I'm gonna put him above good old Goggles. Next up, we have Light Blue Mark, and yeah, the colors are definitely a little bit lighter. And this is the version of Mark that died to Powerplex, according to the person who sent me the names of the list, which is very helpful because I wasn't actually sure which Mark Powerplex had killed. I thought it was Mohawk, but then, we saw Mohawk a little bit later in the episode, so I wasn't sure which one that got killed. Still doesn't seem like the strongest one out of the bunch, quite frankly. And, his costume's just a kind of bland, the colors on his suit are a little bit lighter and paler, but That's kind of it. So I think I'm going to be giving this one a D tier, personally. Next up, we have long hair Mark, and this version of Mark speaks to me. This version of Mark speaks to me like on a spiritual level, because I used to have hair exactly like that. It was a very different time for me. We don't see this Mark very much in episode 7, but man, for the few frames he's there, it's just, he spoke to me. This one really spoke to me. Also, I gotta say, Mark Grayson is a fine-looking man with long hair. So I think this one gets an A tier, and I think it goes above Flaxan Mark, no questions asked. Next up we have, and I quote, Gay Mark, or No Mask Mark. And I'm guessing that the person who sent me the names called him Gay Mark because he said, I miss William, and something tells me that, well, I don't know for certain, feel free to correct me in the comments, but I imagine that my comic expert who sent me the names only called him that because in his alternate universe, he was gay. So, you know, plus points for inclusion. And this Mark also contributed to the betrayal of Angstrom, and he was kind of also, like, very heartwarming. Just the way Stephen Yoon said, I miss William, was like, kind of heart-wrenching. Like, I genuinely felt some sympathy for him. Like, he didn't really seem like he wanted to commit much of this violence. So, high points in personality for me, for this Mark. Costume, though, it's just the normal Invincible costume without a mask. So, let's meet in the middle and give him, like a mid-C tier. I think that's a good place to put him. And of course, next up, one of the Marks we spent the most time with, Mohawk Mark. This guy's a total dickbag, a bit of a psychopath, and just kind of mean all around. The Mohawk both looks ridiculous, but at the same time, it also kind of goes hard. Like, is it just me, or does it kind of go hard? Also, black and blue suit, extra points. He also seems pretty strong compared to our Mark, because he gives our Mark a bit of a run for his money. Maybe not a run for his money, but like, you know, he holds his ground pretty good and gets some good hits in. Ultimately, though, our Mark is probably a little bit stronger, but this one seems, quite up there on the strength scale, out of all these Marks anyway. Also, the way he screams,
who cares? They were weak.
It's just kind of funny to me. I don't know, I think Mohawk's alright. You know, I don't got too many problems with him. I think he'll get like a low B. I think that is like the most fitting. And next up, of course, we have Mustache Mark. Look, Mark, I get that in some versions of other universes, you kind of like become your father, but the Mustache Man, it just doesn't work. It just really doesn't work for you, man. I'm sorry, it doesn't work. We get minimal screen time with this Mark. This is the one that Tech Jacket soloed. Plus points, by the way, to Tech Jacket, not to Mark. And I don't know, he just gives the energy that he's kind of like trying a little bit too hard, you know what I mean? But it does kind of pay off. The way he looks at his foes and the ways we see him in the episode, he looks like he means serious business. So since there's not much personality to go off of and we kind of just have the aesthetics, I think I'll be giving him like, let me think about this for a sec. I think I'm gonna give him like a lower C tier. I think Goggles still takes the bottom of C tier personally. But yeah, Mustache Mark, Next up, we have No Goggles Mark, who I referred to as Wide Eye Mark in my video about episode 7. It's just the normal Invincible costume without the goggles, but this Mark is a psychopath, like a proper psychopath. Hell, the dude is like, "Aw, I killed them too fast. No torture, no fun. I always do this, man." What the fuck is wrong with you? But I must admit, I do find the crazy over-the-top psychopath stereotype, character, archetype, whatever, pretty entertaining. Costume, though, mid. So whilst I find him entertaining, I don't think he's quite as entertaining as these two here. I got more out of these two from their very short dialogue than I did out of No Goggles Mark, so I'm gonna be giving him a mid-C. Next up, we have one of my favorite costumes. It's actually tied for first place for favorite costume, Omni-Mark. I love this costume. It goes really hard, but there is one itty-bitty little thing that prevents him from getting S tier, and that's the fact that he said this.
I always hated you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I don't care how good looking you are or how badass you are. If you say you always hated Eve, you're no friend of mine. But the costume goes really hard, so Omni-Mark gets top of A tier and is staying there. No questions asked. Next up, we have Prisoner Mark, who was doing time in Viltrumite prison and maybe awaiting execution. Dude's got a lot of veins popping out. He's not looking too good. I don't know. We didn't get to spend too much screen time with him. He got like one line of dialogue, I think, and then that was like kind of it. He's just wearing a Viltrumite prison like outfit that we saw like Nolan and Alan wearing, and he's got like he's got some problems going on, like in this area and this area, you know? I don't know, he's kind of an ugly ass, D tier. Next up, I think we have my favorite. I think I would call this one my favorite. Sinister Mark, or as I like to call him, Invincible Supreme. Over the top villainy, but not in like a comical level sense, which I like. Badass costume, for one, the cape adds a lot. Also, the black and yellow just goes so hard. It goes really hard. Like, black and blue is great, but I think the black and yellow just goes a little bit harder, if you ask me. We get to spend quite a bit of screen time with this Mark. We even get to spend some time with this Mark in Season 2. Killed his father, overconfident, just completely over-the-top villain. I love this guy. Easy S tier. Next up, we have Emperor Mark, the one who was like, I wouldn't even keep you as a slave in my empire. Yeah, this is the version of Mark who rules the Viltrum Empire and is evil. His costume has the Viltrum logo on the shoulders, which I thought was pretty neat, and he just seems like one of the worst possible versions of Mark, if you ask me. Worst as in, like, you know, gone bad, like gone evil. I don't think like the costume itself is bad. I think the Viltrumite logo honestly adds a lot to Mark's costume. And as such, I'll be putting him in low B tier, but I don't think he quite holds a candle to the other three. Next up, we have Headcap Mark, or as I like to call him, Balding Ass. Can we just be honest with ourselves? It is so strange to look at that version of the costume. The smooth head without the hair sticking out just looks wrong. It just looks wrong. Although this guy was pretty funny in the episode when Oliver kicked him in the back and he was like, oh, I think you fixed it, thanks. And then he's cracking his bones in all sorts of ways. That was pretty funny. His costume is identical to our Mark's, just, you know, bald. And his personality seems like cheery, but in the sense that like, oh yeah, I'm a sadistic fuck and I have fun with it. Very cocky, doesn't take life too seriously kind of Mark. And, you know, I respect that. But the costume's just kind of cursed, so high D. All right, we're down to our last two, starting off with Sporty Mark. I don't remember seeing much of this Mark at all in episode 7. He was probably there for like a couple frames maybe, or like a couple seconds. Wherever he was in the episode, I'll put it up on screen right now. You know what? I kind of like the zipper. I kind of think it works. I think the goggles are a little bit wider than necessary, but the zipper, it kind of makes sense. I'm not a big fan of the paler colors, but it kind of like complements the zipper almost like it's going towards like a noir Mark territory, you know? He just looks like he'd be a really like chill dude about his job, you know, like he wouldn't go around making proclamations like, oh, I wouldn't even keep you as a pet in my empire, or oh, I killed my own father. He looks like he would just show up, do his job, and walk out with an explosion behind him. This Mark ain't too bad. Honestly, I think he supersedes Mohawk in terms of look, but since we get more personality from Mohawk, I think he's gonna go right behind Mohawk. And our final version of Mark, Viltrumite Soldier Mark. I said it in the episode where I talked about episode 7, and I'll say it again. Mark sports the Viltrumite uniform very good. The normal Invincible costume and its variants are really, really good, and I think the Invincible costume design is just so good. I love it so much. It is so recognizable. But I gotta say, Mark looks really good in a Viltrumite uniform. I don't think it quite holds a candle to Omni-Mark's costume, but I think it still deserves a high ranking, so I will give it an A tier. And there you have it, folks, my ranking of all the variants of Invincible from Invincible Wars show version. I just want to make it very clear that any of the stuff in the lower tiers, I still think the costumes are really interesting and unique, except for like the one where it's just like missing the mask, or the variation is like itty bitty, like very tiny. But with how many cool and interesting other variants there are in terms of costume and personality, you can afford to have more mundane ones in there, and they'll just fit right into the big collage of alternate versions of Invincible. I gotta say, episode 7 was a very enjoyable episode for me. I wish Invincible Wars kind of lasted an extra episode, but I won't complain that we got the conquest fight when we did. I'm a huge sucker for alternate like versions of superheroes with like alternate costumes, seeing like how different they are. Huge sucker, and I've wanted to do one of these tier lists ever since I saw the episode. And if you're wondering why it took me so long to do this tier list, I had a lot of other things to do in the meantime, other videos to make and other productions to worry myself over. Also, I just wanted to wait until the season concluded to do like these more smaller, fun type videos relating to Invincible. And there's still plenty more Invincible content to come whilst we wait for season 4. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, then definitely be sure to hit the like and sub button. Also, I'm gonna promote something that I don't promote nearly as much as I should, but also consider joining the Discord server. I'll leave a link to both the Discord server and this tier list in the description, so if you want to do your own tier list and then post to the Discord, feel free. And if you really like the way I do things and want to show me a little bit of extra support, then definitely consider becoming a channel member. Not only do you get a whole bunch of exclusive rewards, but you also directly support me in the process. And I would just appreciate it. A whole bunch. But that's gonna do it for now. Thank you all so much for watching, and yeah. Have a good day, everyone.